Welcome to Extraordinary Women on thatchannel.com. I'm your host, Shannon Skinner. I've got a great show lined up for you today. In the first half hour, you're going to meet Mary Aitken, who's the founder and CEO of Verity Club, a downtown Toronto private women's club. And later in the segment, before we take a break, I'll have my regular Good to Know Minute when I ask my guests for their top tip on creating a successful life. You're going to hear Mary. Hello.
Morning, Shannon.
Good morning. Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for having me.
Now, you are the founder of Verity Club, a private women's club in downtown Toronto. You started your career in the financial business in the UK. You founded Pronto Toronto, courier services. You founded an investment banking company, Renaissance Securities. And along with your husband, Peter Gundy, you founded Neo Material Technologies.
That's true.
That's quite a roster. Now, of course,
Covers a lot of years, though, Shannon, because I'm old.
Now, Verity Club is a club that's dedicated to women, but with your earlier businesses, you really were immersed in male-dominated industries. How did you actually get your start in business?
Well, it wasn't something that was particularly well thought through. Some people plot and plan their lives and careers, and I'm just not one of those, as it turns out. It's being kind of seat of the pants in terms of how I entered the financial business. I am Canadian, but I was in the UK, and I was married to an Englishman at the time, who fortunately was a rather wealthy Englishman and didn't have to work. So we spent a couple of years roaming about Europe, staying in wonderful hotels, having a blast, until finally I thought, this doesn't mean anything. I can't stand it any longer. So I decided we had to work. So I got a newspaper and looked in the classifieds, found a couple of jobs that we both applied to in the financial industry, by happenstance in the financial industry. So we both got the jobs, and I became a trainee investment analyst in the City of London, working for a British brokerage house. So that was my start, not planned, and so I learned the ropes in a British brokerage house. Very much a male-dominated industry then, still is, but not quite to the extent it was that many years ago.
But of course, you didn't just work in a male-dominated, industry. You thrived.
Well, I guess
you really succeeded.
Well, I guess I did, but I didn't really plan to be in male-dominated industries. But let's face it, in those days, there weren't a lot of women in those industries. And still, there aren't enough women in senior positions, either at the board level, government, senior positions in companies aren't held generally by women. So I struggled my way along. I came back to Canada. I started a courier service, which happened to be, of course, the couriers were all male. And so started Pronto Toronto, ran it for 4 years and sold it, happily during a postal strike, and then re-entered the financial business.
As an investment banker?
No, actually I was looking for another business to either buy or be part of, and I went round to the venture capitalists in the city and said, here I am, and I've started this business, here's my background, and I've got a modest amount of capital, but I also have 2 little kids to support, so this isn't an investment, a passive investment. You get me with my money, with my modest investment. And so I would either take over a whole company that was tiny or a small part of a company that was larger, but I would be there as a manager and run it because I needed to earn income. So I looked at a number of companies, lots of companies, and it seemed like they were all for sale for a reason. They were dogs. And something wasn't right in any of them. So one of the people that I spoke to, one of the venture capitalists, owned a trust company and said, well, look, while you're looking, why don't you take income averaging annuity contracts to the brokers across the city, because we have designed these, which were tax deferral vehicles, and with your background you could sell it to the retail brokers in the brokerage houses across Canada, and that would allow them to retain more of their clients' money in the investment portfolio rather than paying it in taxation. They would defer the payment. They would still pay the money to the government, but over a period of time. So that's what I did. So I got an office there and I was a consultant. And during that time, they said, you can still look for another business, but this is what we'd like you to do. So that's how I re-entered the financial business. And I worked my way along doing financings for small companies after that. And I did a couple of contracts with that company for a couple of years. And then started Renaissance Securities and ended up specializing in natural resource financing. And so once again, we're back into the domain of the guys.
Of men. Well, good for you.
So I enjoy working with men. I love the guys. Of course, the guys aren't great listeners always, and they do have loud voices, and they sometimes ignore the woman's voice, and they sometimes patronize, and they sometimes leave the women out of important meetings and things. And I, of course, found that, and that might have been one of the inspirations for Verity, finding that sometimes syndications in the financial business, syndications are when you put a group together to finance a company. Sometimes these things would take place and I'd be up at the school having a meeting to find what my errant son had just done the day before at school, or I'd be
Your errant son.
or I'd be at my desk having lunch, organizing hockey practice or whatever. So women carry that extra job, and perhaps we don't organize our time well enough, or perhaps it's just the nature of what we do and who we are. We're nurturers, so naturally we're going to be drawn into all of those things. So it's just harder for women to succeed in male-dominated businesses. Now, I might say that some of those businesses that I worked in the natural resource, for example, mining engineers, geologists, and so forth, they're generally men, and generally they kind of still are. It's not industries that women are naturally drawn in large numbers to. So it's just that it seemed to me there had to be a better way for women to run their lives, to get more out of their life, to have less stress in their lives, and that was really the inspiration for me in starting a women's club.
Now, if we can just dig a little deeper in there, with all these enterprises that you started as an entrepreneur, what would you say was the greatest challenge that you faced?
Well, I think the greatest challenge, I think every entrepreneur shares exactly the same challenges. If it's their own business, it's always never having as much money as you think you need to start a company. You always plan for X, it's X plus 50%. And the amount of time it takes to get to break even, to finance a company, it always takes you longer, therefore you need more resources. So I think entrepreneurs always are cash strapped.
Cash strapped.
And I think that, I think also it's important to develop the strategy, the marketing plan that really goes to the heart of what it is you're trying to sell, whether it's in financial services or career services or widgets or whatever it is you're trying to sell. Who is the person who's going to buy your product? And if you've got it slightly wrong, you've got to be flexible enough to be able to tweak it and twist it as you go along. And it's important to have that sort of flexibility to be able to kind of change on a dime and make those changes quickly. Because as an entrepreneur, you don't have time. You don't have a year to think it through and do focus studies and so forth. You've got to make decisions and stick by them and carry them through.
Now, in these in your startups, where did you actually find support to keep going? Was it through a spouse, or was it family, or did you have a role model? Did you have a mentor?
Well, prior to meeting my current husband, Peter Gundy, I guess I am a perseverant kind of person. And earlier, when I was running Prono Toronto and starting it, I did have 2 children to be responsible for, and that's a lot of motivation to provide a living for, and that provides the motivation that you just keep going. So I am kind of a bit of a terrier. But since the happy day I met my husband, Peter Gundy, 29 years ago, I must say he's been the hugest support to me. He's been the mentor. I mean, he's a really He's an incredible guy. I mean, he's trained as a lawyer and turned himself into a financial person, an economist, but he's founded the largest companies in Canada and run them, and is an extraordinary man, a Renaissance man is how I think of him. So he's been a huge support to me, and we've run businesses together where he's been the CEO and where I'm the CEO. He's my business partner in Verity, but I'm the CEO. So we are able to shift roles because we have enormous respect for each other's talents that are different. We have very, very different talents, and we often disagree on things, but we always agree on the basic values. He writes the food column that is on the Verity website, and he once owned the Hotel Saskatchewan, so he knows lots about this industry. He knows lots about all kinds of industries.
Of course, there are some women who would say, oh my God, I would never work with my husband in business.
I know, and people are always fascinated that we can actually do that. But it starts from really having respect for someone, for their values, for the sheer brain power, and knowing that person has the same values and is never going to let you down by doing something and cutting a corner that doesn't feel right for you. You've got to be able to stick to your values in business, because that creates the culture in a business that staff and employees come to embrace. So if you have a partner you're kind of wondering, and that's a negative factor, and it impedes progress.
Now let's talk a bit about Verity. Well, not a bit, we're going to talk quite a bit, but let's turn our attention to Verity. How did this club get its start? And where did this idea come from?
Well, it came from being the person and sitting in boards. I served on a number of public boards and private boards, school board, and I frequently was the only woman. And I looked around the room and I thought, these are all really smart guys, but women have a different point of view. They bring a different perspective. So it's not about one is better than the other. It's about perspective and bringing different things to the table. Why isn't there more women at the table? So I thought about that more and more, and I served on boards in Asia, and once again I was the only woman, and it didn't seem to be the right thing. So I began to think more and more about having a club for women, a place where women could build relationships, they would build their networks, because it's so important going forward to have a proper network. But it wouldn't be a club that would just deal with one discipline. It would be a club, in my view, that covered the spectrum in terms of every industry. So we have members who are broadcasters, who are investment bankers, lawyers, accountants, doctors, researchers, artists. We have everything covered: media, advertising, communication. So it's a really vibrant, dynamic club because you have so much diversity. And that means that when people go to the club, they're doing business with members in the old-fashioned way of getting to know someone, finding common interests and values, and then getting to know each other and doing business. And that creates a stronger business tie than just, the networking. I also at that time saw the proliferation of a lot of virtual clubs, as I call them, which are networking breakfasts and lunches, and endless supply of these. And it seemed to me that was the wrong way to do business. That's certainly not the way men do business. They go and play golf, or they play squash, or they go and have a beer after work. But that's how they build the relationships that then form the alliances that often cause the deals to be done. And so that's what I wanted to create for women. And women don't have time for golf, and they don't like beer so much. And they like to have a glass of wine maybe after work, but their main challenge in life is time. So they are time starved. We have to work with we're dealing with the needs of our families and business. And so to have a place to just go and be and meet people through a variety of interesting programs and professional development provides women with the enrichment, because in my view, to keep going, you need to be feeding yourself all sorts of things, feeding yourself energy through exercise, through the mind in terms of interesting intellectual ideas and thinking about ideas, whether it's cultural or intellectual or political, getting involved in debates so that you go back to your job and you see it differently. It changes your perspective.
Now, we're going to take a short break, and before we do, I've got my good to know minute. And Mary, I know you've got a great tip for my audience.
Well, I think there's a lot of elements that are critical to success, but for me, the most important one, I think, is perseverance. And that's the idea that you stick to things that are important to you, and you endure the hard times, and you enjoy the good times, but you never lose focus in terms of reaching the goals in order to find your way through to them.
Thank you very much. We'll take a short break, and when we come back, more with Mary Aitken. Welcome back to Extraordinary Women on ThatChannel.com. I'm Shannon Skinner, and I'm speaking with Mary Aitken, founder and CEO of Verity Club. Verity is a unique club, as we were sort of talking about earlier in the break, but before the break. Really, what does make this club so unique?
The members. It's an extraordinary group of women. And because it's an extraordinary group of women, and they're so supportive of each other, that's why so much business gets done. Members want to do business with other members, and it's no more complicated than that. And that's how clubs work and have always traditionally worked with men. It's working no differently with women, except it's totally different because we're providing all the things that women don't have time to do, so it's like a one-stop shop. They're able to have a fitness area, a swimming pool, the best equipment in terms of fitness and trainers and fitness directors, a spa, a first-rate spa, which is second to none, and so all the glorious comfort and pampering of a spa, which de-stresses a woman, is available in our spa, Sweetgrass Spa. And then there's all the programming that's available to them that enriches their lives, and there are clubs within the club as well, so sort of like support groups, divorce group and women in transition and bereavement and
mastermind group,
and mastermind, which is I'm glad you mentioned mastermind, because a lot of women have found that mastermind has absolutely been their lifeboat in a storm, because it basically is comprised of groups of members, 8 members and a facilitator, and the facilitator guides the members through. They're chosen to be from all different walks of life in terms of different industries, age, and different experiences, and they share those experiences, whether it be a marketing, branding concern, or how do I raise money in the equity markets, or what do I do about a wrongful dismissal charge, or labor unions, or all of those things. And there's expertise in the group that guide each other. So it's the sharing of experience, which has proven to be just invaluable. And then there's Bridge Club and Wine Club and Book Club and Investment Club and Kids and Career and Mums and Babies and Baby Yoga and all of these things. So it's about what women have always done, which is share experiences, share expertise, and reach out to each other, which a lot of people tell me, Mary, this doesn't happen outside of the club. There's a little bit of competition out there when you find women competing for the same job or in corporations, etc. Whereas in Verity, people are there because they want to be part of a community. They want to support each other. And that's what Verity is really all about.
I've been to the club, and it has a beautiful, wonderful energy to it. The design is lovely, and you can tell that the members really enjoy their time there. The restaurant George, now this has been indicated as one of Toronto's top restaurants. Now, why is George, a restaurant that's part of a private club, open to the public?
Well, the problem, I think, in my view, with private clubs is that the food's no good, and the restaurants are, you're forced to be there because most clubs have minimums, food and beverage minimums. So we wanted to have a restaurant that was second to none, that was the best food in town. And it would be full of buzz and energy, and you don't want people whispering in a restaurant. There's only a few people there and you're eating your minimum at the end of the month. So the idea is you've got fabulous food designed for women, so there's small portions packed with flavor. So George is open to the public, and it is buzzing, it is full, it is it's regarded as one of the top 600 restaurants in the world, in the extraordinary category by Zagat, in the world. So Lorenzo Lazzetto is the executive chef, and he's always appears in the top 10 chefs, and just actually won the silver medal and the gold medal plates here in Toronto just before Christmas. So it is first-rate food, and it's the way it should be for us women. We're trying to make our way. Don't take the guys to some little place with quiche and salad. Take them to the best damn restaurant in the city. And they come and they say, oh, gee, this is really great. What is this restaurant? It's my club. Now that's brownie points. That means that you're somebody who has some taste. You're not just a little wormy woman eating salads and things. You're there with them. And it's also because our staff are trained to recognize women are trying to do business. Oh, that's a member over there. Members are treated, especially in George Restaurant. They recognize each other. There's a flower on the table. And the staff are reading the table to see, oh, she's trying to do something. Well, we'll just give her a little more time, so that you don't have that waiter coming up right in the middle of your killer closing argument and asking if everything's all right. That will never happen at Verity and George. And our members use the private dining rooms in Verity for the same purpose, or they go to George, but they know they're going to have top-rate food wherever they are in the club, because George is part of us and is owned and operated by Verity, so there's no different ownership or contractual arrangement. So the food that's had in the spa, in the meeting rooms, anywhere in the club is the same food, the same hands, the same kitchen as George.
And of course, you happen to have a small hotel.
We do, the Ivy at Verity, and we haven't advertised it, although we were fortunate enough that En Route magazine wrote us up in September as the best boutique hotel in the city. And so, of course, there was lots of activity around the rooms then, and we were really pleased. But it's along the ideas of a European boutique hotel, where everything is kind of family run and beautifully done. They're Heston's beds, beautiful Italian sheets, attention to detail. It's like being in your own home with gorgeous fabrics, and women. And you talked about the design of the club, and women love textures and color and design. We appreciate that. It makes us relax, and when we're relaxed, I think we do a better job of business. So the rooms are about relaxing. It's like being in a residence, except you've got room service and delicious food, and you've got a little honor bar outside with champagne and wine and whatever you like, and you can meet a client there before going down to dinner in George or whatever.
Now, of course, you are quite... Verity Club is quite involved in outreach programs with young girls in Toronto. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, thank you. I'd love to. The outreach program really came of the idea of a community of women, the Verity women, lodged downtown in Queen Street, and the neighboring community just a few blocks away was another quite different community, that being Regent Park. And those women were facing really considerable differences to the challenges that are facing Verity members. So it's one community reaching out to another. So that's how it started, and it started with something that we just did for the 7th time this Christmas, called 100 Friends at Christmas, and it's where 100 single women and children come to George Restaurant and have Christmas dinner on Christmas Day, and Verity members serve them and cook with the help of our chefs, and there's Santa Claus and face painters and balloon makers and clowns and presents for the kids and the mums, and it's like a big family Christmas. So that just seemed to expand itself to other things. We then formed a girls club, which is girls that started between the age of 8 and 13, and the idea there was girls coming from severely disadvantaged backgrounds, and often there's substance abuse involved, and financial deprivation. And the idea is building confidence. And the girls come to the club once a week under the tutelage of one of our members who's a psychologist, and it's all about building their confidence. And the change that we've seen since they've been coming to the club is just amazing. And then there's a teen club, and then the mums come in once a month, and they come to the spa and have spa services. And it's about having someone care about you. It's about having hands touch you, and it's about having a manicure and talking to people who are sympathetic and guiding. But we want to do much more on the mentoring side in Regent Park, and we're looking at now how to develop our strategy to marshal our resources in the best way we can to bring all the talents and skills of the members of Verity to this community.
Mary, how does it feel to be in a position to be able to give back to the community now?
Well, as George Clooney said about Darfur, I can't imagine not doing it. I can't imagine anyone in this day and age not thinking of that. So it just seems like a natural outreach. And especially, I run a women's club, and we women are natural, nurturers. So we're always thinking. We're the first to weep in commercials where a child doesn't have enough to eat. So it's natural that we want to reach out and help. And it seemed like a natural thing for Verity to do.
Mary, our time is almost up, but I have a question that I would love to ask you, and that is, what is your definition of success?
Well, my definition of success is it's a journey. I don't have a simple answer to give back and feel that you've made a difference. The smallest difference, the largest difference, to feel that you've created quality. I think that to me, success isn't the end of the journey. It's not the destination. It's very much on the way through, and how you handle it on the way through, how you deal if you're building a business, how you deal with your employees, your partners, your family. It's about building something and seeing it grow and flourish.
Mary Aitken, thank you so much for being here. I wish you all the best.
Thank you very much for having me, Shannon.